fastest way for you to get rich, and I mean like real rich, actual wealth, legacy money, is to build and sell a business. This is statistically true. The data shows us that where most people think that massive wealth is built through real estate, what they don't realize is the seed to most real estate investments came from a business exit. My friend Perry Belcher is doing a massive study on this. He's looked at all the data, and what he found is almost 70% of high net worth individuals made their seed capital through a business exit, and the remaining 20 some odd percent made it through inheritance, and then whatever was left is like lawsuits and lottery winners and things. So unless you have a bunch of money that you're going to inherit, in which case God bless you, stop watching this and go ski, because there's no reason for you to work. Large scale wealth is made through a business exit. This is the entrepreneurial path to freedom. Most wealth isn't going to come from what you make on a day-to-day basis or an annual basis. It's going to come from what you're able to sell your business for. And the reason for that is businesses are sold on multiples. And so all the money that you could make in your business, when you go to sell it, somebody's going to pay 6 or 10 or 20 or 50 times that amount of money, which is how you effectively accelerate time. You bring time towards you in terms of what it was that you were going to make. And the business exit for small businesses is hyper specific. So here's some of the things that I learned from my second exit, which was my big one. I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I sold it to a SoftBank-backed MarTech company that had AI and wanted Google Ads agencies in order to drop them in its sandbox and start to see whether or not its technology was working. The first thing I learned, when you're a small business, people aren't actually buying your business. That doesn't happen until way later and you're much bigger. We were sub 8 figures in revenue. I think I was around 6 or 7 million gross rev. And when you're that small, they buy assets. So the business structure, the entity, was just left to die. They bought all my assets from me. And that's the really interesting part about the exit process, is when you start to realize what actually constitutes an asset. When I sold my business, I had 200 customers, and those customers were an asset, but the asset was the agreement. Now, this is really interesting, because I remember, especially as a small business owner, I used to think agreements were stupid. I thought the contracts that I had people sign were a formality, and it didn't really matter what the legalese said, because, you know, you're going to pay me and I'm going to do the work, and I'm always going to do the right thing, and I only worked with people that I trusted, so who cares? The buyer cares. Those agreements became the primary thing that they were purchasing. They didn't care that the customer had papered up with me. They cared what the paper said. And thank God I had a business mentor who insisted on the fact that all my agreements were transferable, because they weren't buying the entity, they were buying the agreements, which means that the agreement actually has to be purchasable. If it's not, I would have had to gone to every single one of my customers one at a time, all 200, and say, "Mother, may I? Can I transfer this agreement between you and me to now be between you and this company that you've never heard of?" And how many people do you think are going to just wholesale say yes to that, right? So you want to make sure that not only are all your agreements transferable, you want to make sure that all of your assets are transferable, because the company didn't just want my agreements with my customers, they also wanted my agreements with my vendors. And that ended up being a little stickier, because not all those agreements are transferable. Now, we got the deals done, but it required a lot of shaking hands and kissing babies and, you know, really cajoling some folks to allowing legacy agreements to carry over. So are your agreements transferable? That's the first question. If they're not, go make them so. And that ends up being a relatively easy rewrite. But it's important for you to know, as a small business, what is it that the acquiring entity is actually buying? They're usually not buying your company. They're buying things out of your company, and those things are your assets. Another asset is going to be your brand. So it's, you know, the usual suspects, obviously, right? So it'd be like your logo and your URL and anything that you have trademarked, and your social profiles. For us, one of the things I thought was really interesting, we spent $150,000 to $250,000 a month in YouTube ads, building our YouTube channel, penetrating the whole Google Ads world with our message. I thought that was immensely valuable. They could not have cared less, which is really interesting in my mind, because I could have spent $150,000 to $250,000 building my personal brand, building my YouTube channel, sold that business, and kept the equity in that channel. So start to really pay attention to, what is it that I'm building? How am I building it? What do I want to sell? What do I want to keep? Because if I could go back, I sure would like to have that YouTube channel right now. Here I am starting over from zero, because I spent $4 million in ads and basically gave up that equity to a company that they didn't care about the YouTube channel, but they weren't willing to let it go. Why? Because it was branded Solutions 8, and they wanted everything that was branded Solutions 8. So in the world of understanding that you're selling assets, get really clear on what assets you want to sell, and get really clear on where the value is. In the example I gave you with my YouTube channel, the equity in the YouTube channel didn't diminish the value of the business, but the leads that the YouTube channel sent to the business were immensely valuable. And if you're able to retain something like that, then that can actually become part of the agreement, to where you continue to get, you know, referral fees, let's say, which is a great way to have multiple bites at the apple. And that's one of the things that you always want to do from a deal structure perspective, which leads me to the next thing that you need to be aware of. Terms are more important than price. And I'll prove it now. I will give anybody watching this video that has a positive EBITDA $1 billion for their business, and I'll put that in writing. Drop in the comments if you agreed to that price. The terms, of course, would be $1 a day for a billion day, right? Like now you got $1 billion exit and I got your business for effectively $365 this year. And we'll continue to pay you $1 a day for a billion days as long as your business is positive EBITDA. Why wouldn't I do that? So what you need to be cognizant of is that the terms, and I'm telling you, these people that buy businesses, these Ivy League educated Goldman Sachs douchebags, they're smarter than you. At least they were a lot smarter than me. And they do this hundreds of times a year. If you're lucky, you're going to have one exit every couple of years. It's like walking onto a car lot and thinking you're going to out negotiate the car salesman. I have a friend, his neighbor owns 57 car lots, or 57 car dealerships. He's a massive car dealer. And he tells this story laughing. He goes, it's so funny because guys and gals will walk on the car lot thinking they're going to beat me at negotiation. They buy one car every 5 years. I sell a car every 57 minutes. Like there's no way, you just don't have the reps. So realize that these Goldman Sachs types, they are going to out academia you. The way to combat this, by the way, is to not try to rise to their level, right? Because all that's going to happen is like, you know, the greatest fencer is never going to fear the second greatest fencer, but he might fear somebody who's never fenced before. That's a Mark Twain quote. So don't try to be a fencer. Instead, you put up your iron curtain of stupidity. Every single document that somebody slides across the table to you, don't pretend to understand. Instead, you make them explain it to you like you're a 5-year-old and draw it out in crayon. The reason for that is because if they're going to screw you over, they have to explain in very clear language exactly how it is that you're being screwed over. So attempt not to posture. Instead, make it very, very, very apparent that you need to be shepherded through this process. And I promise you that's going to save you more often than not. And that'll especially save you as they start to try to change terms, which by the way, they do all the time. I saw it in my exit. I saw it in my friend's exit. They'll come up and they'll say, oh yeah, I'll give you your asking price for sure. Can't wait. Let's do this. Shake my hand, sign the LOI, get into the due diligence process. And then, by the way, no big deal, but you know, we'd love to tweak this, change this, modify this. And the things that they're changing feel benign. You know, at one point I heard a story about somebody who agreed to an asset purchase agreement for a certain amount of money as due diligence started. And due diligence, by the way, is going to be 8 to 9 months. So it's an arduous process. The buyer came to him and said, hey, you know, incidentally, we were talking to you know, some of our folks behind the scenes. And if we change this from an asset purchase agreement to a referral agreement, we can give you the same amount of money. And due diligence goes from 9 months to 9 weeks. And the seller was like, gosh, why wouldn't I do that? It's the same amount of money. You're still buying all my clients. Here's what happened. In an asset purchase agreement, that's capital gains. That means that you're only paying 20% taxes. The amount of money that you're making as though you're selling an asset. A referral agreement is regular income. That means that your taxes are now 45% and the buyer gets to write it off. And doubling the tax liability in an 8-figure purchase is significant. I paid 7 figures in taxes. You had double that, that would have been multiple millions of dollars. So those little terms make a big difference. And if you don't dig into why do they want to do it, they will find a way to bleed you to the end. Here's the other thing that you need to know. Do not hide your skunks. Take everything that's wrong about your business and throw it on the table in the very beginning. Why? Because it means you get to negotiate for everything that's wrong wholesale up front. So you might say, hey, we have this key man insurance, we have this really difficult client, we've made this mistake, we have this exposure, this liability, this. Here's everything that's wrong about my business. Every reason you wouldn't want to buy my business. All the things that suck about my business up front. Now, when they come to you with a number, has to be an honest number that you both agree to and takes into consideration everything that you've told them. If you hide anything, I promise you they will find it. Again, this is what they do, right? They're going to find it, but they're not going to find it and tell you right out of the gate. You know what they're going to do? They're going to find it and they're going to save it. And then they're going to walk you through this 9-month process of due diligence. And then they're going to get all the way to the end. They're on the finish line. It's the 4th quarter. There's a couple minutes left in the play. And then they're going to come to you and like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, Kasim. We just found the thing at the place at the time with the guy. And you know what? Your multiple goes from 8 to 6. Sorry. What do you want to do? You've already cashed the check. You've taken your eye off the ball. You've told everybody that you've sold. You've let all your employees know, your clients. You've walked through this entire process. And because you tried to hide something, you gave them leverage. Don't do it. Put it all out on the front end. And what's really nice about having it on the front end is if you tell them everything that's wrong, they can't individualize the down regulation of the purchase price. They just have to take it all as a bucket. So you're putting yourself at an advantage from a negotiation perspective not to try to hide anything. The other piece that I'll offer you is do tax prep now. If you think you want to sell your business, do tax prep now. Go talk to a tax attorney and ask them, how do I mitigate these risks? I would have had an extra $1 million in my pocket if I wasn't an infant and did any amount of tax prep prior to my exit, but I didn't. And so when my exit came, my CPA was like, dude, there's nothing we can do. There's just nothing we can do for you because you haven't planned ahead. So you need to be at least a year out and preferably more. Start working with a tax attorney because, you know, the thing about millions of dollars is it's not what it used to be. The term millionaire was popularized in the 60s. In the 60s, people wanted to be a millionaire because being a millionaire actually meant something. Today, you know, post-inflation, 60 some odd years later, $1 million doesn't retire you. $3 million probably doesn't retire you depending on where you are geographically speaking. $5 million if you're anywhere on the coast still doesn't retire you. So you need to make sure that you're actually, I mean, you know, we all want to aim at that seven-figure lick. It doesn't mean what you think it does. And if you're not being really cautious and really careful about how it is that you're retaining and using that money, I forget his name, but the guy who invented the FIRE movement, F-I-R-E, financial independence, retire early, he retired with, I think he retired with $2.5 million. I read recently he had to go back to work. He had to go back to work because I think him and his wife live in San Francisco, and he's like, I can't afford to live anymore. He can't, like $2.5 million. It wasn't enough, so he had to go back and get a 9-to-5. You have to be penny wise. You have to be penny wise, and you have to make sure that what it is that you're doing with your exit money sets you up for whatever your next phase of life is. And that's the last thing that I'll leave you with. Be careful about assuming this is going to make you happy. Be careful about the Mike Ties by the Beach dreams. I have yet to meet one human who's actually really been able to let themselves just collapse into that. Most people who sell their business, I actually just got off the phone with a friend who sold his business for 20 some odd million dollars. It was 21 or 24. And he's like, I've never been more depressed in my life. And I'm laughing, not at him. I'm laughing because I had a similar response and a similar reaction. I was a poor kid. I was raised by a blind single mother on Social Security disability in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where welfare babies raised in the ghetto. And welfare babies from the ghetto think money's going to make them happy. And I thought that all the way up until I got a bunch of money, and even a little after. Because a little after I was like, why am I not happy? What is wrong with me? And the truth is, money makes life so much easier on so many levels of analysis. My kids go to private school. I travel all the time. I get to buy anything that I want. It's not going to check all the boxes. Don't put so much pressure on the other side of the rainbow. Know what's next for you. Aim at contribution. Aim at meaning. What's interesting is on a long enough timeline, if you really do put in the work, you're going to get it. That's something I can tell you. I can guarantee it. You know, to the young entrepreneurs, that nervous, anxious energy you feel, because I used to feel that so much. I was like so desperate to know I was going to be successful. I promise you, if you stay on the field long enough, it's inevitable. It's not the end. It's not enough. It's a great step. I'm happy it happened. And, you know, I still want more. It's an insatiable thirst. I hope this was helpful. If you've made an exit and you've watched this video, I'd love to know what advice you think I've missed. What would you offer to people that are on their way? Hit me in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.